Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Eternal Midnight. And today, we are talking the odd one out, the black sheep. Uh, because in between the Raimi movies and the MCU movies, there was a little period of time where Spider-Man had got a small, soft reboot with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And Chad and I agree that this two duology of movies is very underrated. So let's start with The Amazing Spider-Man. So Chad, what do you think of The Amazing Spider-Man, dude?
The Amazing Spider-Man is better than all three Raimi movies and both MCU films.
Oh wow, you got elaborate on that, dude. Explain why.
What's wrong with it? I'm not kidding. Like, I love throwing that one out there. What's actually wrong? And I'm just talking the first one. I'm not talking the second one. What's actually wrong with The Amazing Spider-Man? I've never seen a Raimi fan tell me why it's actually bad. They just go, they just always say the same thing.
He wasn't told.
Raimi should have just kept going. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this film. Because you know what? While this film does not portray Peter as the stereotypical dork that he was, he still wasn't that popular as a kid. We got the best fucking relationship out of all three iterations of Spider-Man. That's not even up for debate. The chemistry between Garfield and Stone is absolutely perfect in both films, in my opinion. And that's a major factor of what helped makes this good. It doesn't have that... The Raimi movies had a certain style, a certain feel to them that these movies just do not. These feel like they actually could take place in a real-world setting. The Raimi movies kind of didn't, if that makes sense.
Right. I think what I like about The Amazing Spider-Man is the fact that it's a lot more
Grounded.
It's a lot more grounded and real. And I use that term very, very strongly because that's not a light term to use. Like when you say a movie's grounded and real, you have to give basis on that. And what I think about it is, it doesn't make Peter Parker like perfect. I mean, like, okay, he's never been perfect to begin with. But what I got from the Raimi movies is, okay, yeah, he's a nerd, but when the minute he becomes Spider-Man, he's a perfect guy. You know, he's like, oh, you know, I'm Spider-Man, woohoo! But like with what I like about Mark Webb's take is he's at first becomes Spider-Man out of rage, you know, like he doesn't, which is a normal human thing. Like he doesn't become, like he becomes Spider-Man because at first it's to get even, which is a very realistic thing because I think, in my opinion, how do I formulate this? Because I need to explain it properly, or else the audience won't get it. I think, in my opinion, the reason why The Amazing Spider-Man works is because it depicts what humans would do if they had spider powers.
It feels like Webb took the way an actual teenager would act.
Yeah, if you were a teenager who was bullied, which, you know, like most people did at one point in their lives, they probably would do what Peter would do with the basketball scene with Flash.
Speaking of that, I don't see how anybody can say Flash from the Raimi movies was better than Chris Zoka. Chris Zoka is the best Flash out of all three of them. That's another one not even up for debate.
Yeah.
That scene after Uncle Ben gets killed and Peter throws him up against the locker and Flash is like, I'm just telling you I'm sorry. That scene is amazing. Because that shows Peter's not perfect. That literally goes exactly against it. He throws the bully up against the locker when the bully was just trying to express his sorry for him. The kid he was picking on. It shows that there's more to this character than just, durr, I'm Flash, I'm the bully.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like about The Amazing Spider-Man is the fact that when Peter's a troubled kid, you know, he's dealing with the angst of his parents leaving. You know, he's dealing with, you know, this new spider powers that he got, and he's dealing with his first love romance. And that whole scene of, you know, when Peter decides to go to Oscorp and connect with Kurt Connors, who knew his father, and then comes back and realizes he forgot to pick up Aunt May, and him and Uncle Ben fight. It's like it's a realistic fight. It reminded me of that fight in Marriage Story, where it's like this is how a troubled son, and a dad trying to connect would probably interact. You know what I mean?
It felt more like, I know I'm going to get shit for this, and I'm really, really fucking sorry. Normal people do not give speeches like Uncle Ben did in the car. With great power comes great responsibility. What power was he referencing that Peter had at that point?
Yeah,
Peter
exactly.
wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the smartest. He didn't have the most common sense. There was nothing about him that stood out like that Uncle Ben knew about, where it's like, you have a gift, use it wisely. He didn't know anything about Peter for that. And again, it's almost like the way Alfred talks in The Dark Knight, where like everything gets this like big elaborate speech.
Yeah.
That's not how people talk. So like you just said, the argument between Peter and Uncle Ben about not picking up his aunt and making her walk home on her own, that is a realistic argument that a family would have.
Yeah, even the other scene later in the movie where like where Aunt May asks, "Did you get the eggs?" and Peter's like, "I forgot the eggs. I'll go right now." And it's like, "I'll go right now. I'll get them right now."
And just breaks down crying.
Yeah, and it's like, and then it's like, "Please, Aunt May, please go to sleep." And then Aunt May's like, "I can't sleep. Do you realize that I can't sleep?" It's like,
it like you said, it's far more grounded. It feels more realistic.
Yeah,
it's just this is a more realistic world, the way these characters talk and act, and that's not. And we're not slamming the Raimi movies. We're not doing that. That was the style Raimi went with, and if that's the style that you honestly prefer, not an issue. I preferred this style, and before anybody like, oh, you grew up with these, I'm in my mid-30s. I've seen every Spider-Man movie in theaters. It's not my fault. I like these better. They resonated with me more, and I appreciated them more.
Yeah,
and I fucking love this suit. I love both the TASM suits, but this one's great.
I like the suit also because and I always heard the complaints like, oh, it looks like a basketball. But yeah, that's
how a kid would do it. Please, can somebody explain to me how Peter Parker from the Raimi movies made his suit? Can you explain it to me? He had barely any brains and he had no money. How did he make that suit? Can somebody tell me?
They don't because they can never.
Because nobody knows, because it makes no goddamn sense.
Because it zooms in on the logo and then he's suddenly wearing a suit now. So
there's supposedly a deleted scene or something, I guess, or a rumored deleted scene about where it came from, but it's like they just hopped over it. It's like, okay, fine. At least in this one, we see Peter like sewing the suit together, taking the sunglasses and like putting them on the suit. It's like, I love watching the evolution of the suit. I mean, Deadpool basically did the same thing, but it's like, this came first.
Exactly, like there's a Mark 1 of the suit first where it's just like a red like latex and it's sunglasses. It's like, oh, yeah, that's exactly how a Mark 1 would look like. And I love how Peter is flawed. Like the choice he made. Like after the fight with Uncle Ben, he ran out that night, and because his Uncle Ben went looking for him, he got shot. That's way more realistic and interesting than, oh, I let the guy from my wrestling match go, then he shot Uncle Ben.
I mean, there was a different message there, but it's like, it was something Peter learned. But again, I like how Webb did it in a different way. Uncle Ben was still killed, and that was just how this Peter would have done it. In his excitement of learning he's got these powers and learning the mystery behind his dad, his shit slipped his mind, and his reaction to getting yelled at, because think about it, his reaction to getting yelled at was to storm out, and because of his temper, he got Uncle Ben killed. Peter's was anger at another person, and his actions had consequences. Because he didn't do the right thing, Uncle Ben was killed. So again, that's why I like Webb didn't copy what Raimi did. He's doing something different, and
Right,
he still pulled it off.
exactly. It really is like it's just a different take, but it's still a respectful take. Like,
Yeah, they're not completely changing stuff up. They're not saying like instead of getting bit by a spider, he like drank a glass of water and swallowed a spider or something, and it like broke down in his stomach and he had superpowers or something. It's like, no, they were just like, we need to find a way to do this again, but differently. And while I do agree, maybe they could have skipped the origin of how he got his powers. They didn't dwell on it. It didn't last that long.
Yeah. And also what I like about it is honestly, dude, like one of the best scenes I like about this is the bridge scene. That's when he really becomes Spider-Man. Like a lot of people talk about that when he becomes Spider-Man, because I agree, because before it was he's Spider-Man because revenge. I'm gonna be this guy. I'm gonna use my powers to get revenge on the man who killed my uncle. That's why he's been searching for that star tattoo. That's the purpose of that star tattoo, right? You know, it's like there, you know, there. Like, is it there? Like, he only gets guys with like to have the same profile. But now it's like when he rescues that guy, it's like, no, I am Spider-Man. Like, I don't have to do this just for revenge. I'm doing it for something more now. I have a bigger calling than just looking for my uncle's killer, which I think.
And that scene of him taking his mask off and giving it to that kid.
Yeah.
Again, far more realistic than nobody reporting who Peter Parker was in Spider-Man 2 without his mask. Because this is a little terrified child. He's not looking at Peter's face when he has his mask off and gives it to him and says, here, put this on.
Yeah, and I also like, I mean, like, okay, well, it's even though it's a bit cheesy, I'll give it that. I do like that final ending where like all the cranes are lined up and he starts.
That was awesome.
Yeah, like it's a bit cheesy, but you know what? New York is like.
But you know what? It also does show, again, following the actions have consequences. Peter went out of his way to save that man's kid. And that guy was like, to me, Spider-Man is a hero. I'm going to do whatever I can to help him.
Yeah, it's more realistic than, you know, those people in New York all over the Manhattan.
You messed with one of us, you messed with all of us, my ass.
Yeah. Nah, I don't think so. Like, yes. But like that one guy and his friends, yeah.
And don't forget, everyone, I still love Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
If it sounds like I'm knocking it, it's just because I like this one better. I still like Spider-Man 1 a lot.
Yeah, I think the Amazing Spider-Man, like it grasps the humanity of the superhero, you know, and like that's something a lot of comic book movies don't do nowadays. Like I've seen it in Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy and Man of Steel and this one. It's like it's the humanity of Spider-Man. It's a guy with flaws and he's not perfect. He's all, you know, Spider-Man is Peter Parker and Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Like they're two halves of the same coin, you know.
And I don't see a lot of people talk about this one, but this is another thing that majorly stands out for me. We'll get to Gwen in a little bit, but I want to talk about her dad first. Okay, so in the Raimi movies, it's just Jameson, Spider-Man, you're a bad guy. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
In this one, no. Captain Stacy makes a point. He's like, we are the police. He is a vigilante. I don't care that what he's doing is right. That's not how things go. And it's like, while, again, I mean, you could make that argument for anything. Superman, Batman, Iron Man, Captain America. Yeah, yes. Anyone acting like a vigilante outside of the law, no matter how good it is, you're still breaking the law. And it's like, I can see it from his side. And I thought it was interesting, that table scene at dinner when they were going back and forth.
Like that. Yeah. It really was interesting because it's like you see,
and Dennis Leary is awesome, so it's always good seeing him in a movie.
Like you see different sides of it, you know. It's like it's not just oh, Spider-Man's a hero and there's the villain. It's like, no, there are also people involved in Spider-Man's story that are not heroes or villains, like Captain Stacy, like Flash, like Aunt May. And Mark Webb, to me, captures that more than the Raimi movies did, because The Raimi movies, like, okay, yeah, there's Aunt May in it, but Aunt May is more of like,
Again, she
you're
gives
a
speeches
vibe.
the same way Alfred did in Dark Knight.
Exactly.
And she didn't always, so don't anybody, oh, she didn't always, I know she didn't always, but it's like, whenever a character gives like a big pre-thought out monologue, it's like, okay, they had no idea this person was going to ask them this. And then they give them like this 5-minute life lesson. And it's like, people don't always have stuff prepared like that unless it's in a script.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's not like in the Amazing Spider-Man. Like, I'm not sucking it off or anything, but like it is realistic. It's more realistic in terms of like villains too. Like when Connors is looking at the glass and his hand is mirrored in it. It's like shit like that. It's like why I like Amazing Spider-Man. It's like it shows that these guys are human too. It's not like
And when he's told we're taking away your experiments, he didn't just start experimenting on himself because he got bored. He was told, like, in 24 hours, you're off the project. Get out of here. He was like, I either do this or I'm going to live the rest of my life wondering what could have happened. And he made a mistake. And look what became of it. So it's like, you know what? It made sense. Lizard's design, I would have liked maybe a little more. I get that they went for the Lizard design. He's called Lizard, for fuck's sake. But it's like, anytime you see him in like an animated series, he always kind of has more like an alligator-ish looking face.
Yeah.
I kind of think I would have liked that a little more because I was getting a couple like little Ninja Turtle vibes. But I don't think his design was that bad. But at least when he was Lizard, I mean, he was beyond strong as hell. He had a decent, insane plan.
Yeah, I like this one. Like release the pathogen, like turn everyone into lizards. Like, okay.
And speaking of that, let's talk about what I think is probably one of the strongest things about this film.
Which is?
Gwen Stacy.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Everything about Gwen is, I mean, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is what helps make these movies, is at least what helps make this movie as good as it is. The chemistry she had Garfield have is incredible. And Emma Stone being the actress she is, just go ahead. What do you?
Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy is still the number one like love interest in any superhero property, any Super Marvel, DC, any MCU, X-Men, any superhero property. No one has topped Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy till this day.
Nope.
No one has topped it. Do you agree, Chad, or am I just like both?
No, 100%. Because we haven't. She brought charisma. She brought brains. Gwen Stacy was never a damsel in distress in these films.
Oh no, she took Mary Jane to the fucking park.
This was what Mary Jane should have been. This was literally what Mary Jane should have been. But it's like, you know what? I'm glad they gave it to Gwen because it was all
Gwen
the better for it.
I always liked Gwen way more than Mary Jane, honestly. Because Gwen Stacy is beautiful, she's amazing, and she's useful. She's like, I'm gonna let.
I mean, she wasn't running around yelling. She wasn't running around screaming. She was actively in Oscorp Tower as shit was going down.
Right, like I'm gonna get these people out right now, while you handle the bad guy.
You do this, I'll do that. Perfect.
Yeah, Gwen wasn't like, help me. No, she never did that. And no. I'm glad she didn't.
Yeah, it just, I see. That's what I don't get. And honestly, I love the visuals in this movie. Like the way, like the one shot, I think it was in the first or second trailer. I don't remember. I know it was in the movie. When Peter is like running and they're showing it from his point of view, climbing up the wall, swinging onto the building. It's like, yes, that looks awesome. And then that scene of him down in the sewers, like sitting on his web, waiting for Lizard to come out. Oh, we haven't even talked about what makes him as Spider-Man awesome. He has the awesome one-liners and the comedy.
Oh yeah, I love that. And it's like,
Oh my god, a small knife, my one weakness.
I also like when he's like my favorite line. Okay, I'll talk about first my favorite shot and then my favorite line. My favorite shot in the movie is when it's after Gwen's dad dies and he looks out in the city and you see the flakes coming down, like the blue flakes. And he's like he has his mask off. It's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. It's like, yes, that was perfect. And then the second one, my favorite one-liner is, "You seriously think I'm a cop in a skin-tight red and blue suit? Really?" It's like, yeah, dude, I wouldn't either.
Oh, and that scene where Captain Stacy sees him without his mask after he just took out that whole police force without his mask. I remember that shot in the trailer where they like ripped his mask off. I was like, oh shit. And then you see it in the movie and him and Stacy just look at each other and it's like, shit. And both of them are just like at a complete loss for words. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
God, that scene was so well done. And then like that at the very end, Peter, leave my daughter out of this. And we'll get into that when we go to TASM 2. But it was like, you know what? I'm glad they just didn't copy the end of Spider-Man 1 with him being like, I can't be with you.
Yeah.
And he was like, promises are made to be broken. And she smiles and cut to credits.
I also like that scene of Gwen looking up at the rain after her dad dies, and like Spider-Man's just like watching. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And even like the more human moments, like that, like when Peter comes back to Aunt May after defeating Lizard, and you can see his face is just like wrecked, and he opens the bag and he brings out the eggs. I was like, wow. It's like shit like that is like why I love Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, TASM is underrated as hell. There's a reason it's my favorite. And I mean, we've been listing it. Okay, Lizard wasn't as over the top and campy as Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Venom and Sandman. So what? I know I know people say like, you need a good villain to make a good movie, but it's like sometimes the human drama enough can be the villain.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like this movie also had the added little side, the little B plot of trying to figure out what actually happened with his parents. I like how that was added in there. It's a shame we'll never get follow-up on it. I mean, maybe we will someday, but it's like, I'd kind of like to know. I'd like to see more delved into that, but it's not going to happen. So it is what it is. I'm over it.
Yeah, it sucks. We're never going to get a sequel to like.
Never going to get a TASM 3 or a following this universe's Sinister Six. So, oh well. So TASM, do you have anything else, or are you ready to wrap it up and move on to the controversial one?
I'm good. So let's go to the one that I still like, but yeah, it has flaws. It definitely has flaws, and that's because
it still has the best suit of any Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, but the thing is, it wasn't Webb's fault. It was the studio. So
this was not Webb's fault. This is TASM 2 is what happens when a studio lets someone make something, it's successful, and then they get involved. This is and I'm not defending the movie for some of the flaws it has, but I don't really care what most people say. I still like this movie. I genuinely think it gets way more hatred than it actually deserves.
I agree.
Like, is it as good as the first one? No. Is it as good as Homecoming or Spider-Verse or Sam Raimi's first movie? No. But is it an awful piece of shit? No. Absolutely not. Like, I've actually seen people say I've actually seen people make lists where they're like the 5 worst superhero movies ever made. And they'll put Catwoman, BVS, and then they'll have like this. And I'm like, wow, you people, like, have you ever seen Steel? Have you ever seen some of the older
and Robin?
Batman and Robin is an amazing comedy. But no, I don't understand the just like vitrionic hatred this movie gets.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
weird.
get it.
It's weird.
Like people,
Not bad.
I
Not
hate
bad.
making comparisons, and we actually just talked about this before we got on. So I'm not meaning to make like a full-on comparison, but it's like the MCU has shitty villains too. MCU fans just always seem to step around them, and they're willing to point a finger at this movie and go, Green Goblin was garbage. He wasn't great.
He
wasn't
but
great.
That was because I can tell that was because that wasn't the fault of
That was
Webb.
not Webb's
It
fault.
was the studio putting in like so much shit that
Right.
it's obvious that at that point, like,
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't, because the movie still has good in it. Like we'll leave the villains for a little bit, but let's just look at the plot of Peter and Gwen in this movie.
well,
It's still extremely strong.
Yeah, it still is. Yeah.
Like, you don't want Gwen, you don't want them to break up, but the reason makes sense. And you know what? Again, this handled I can't be with you 1,000 times better than Raimi's Spider-Man 2 did.
I agree.
Way fucking better. It's like, I've seen some people be like, oh, look, he's a creep. He's followed her around the city. Yeah, because he still cares about her. He's also not like following her to her show or being like, I wish you didn't have a new boyfriend. No, he was following her, and then it hit the point where he's like, I can't do this. Like, I need you in my life. I can't, I still need you.
Oh, that was awesome. But yeah, it was a bit cheesy, the I love you Webb, but it still worked, honestly.
You know what? Everything about the Raimi movies is cheesy. People can't say that that's cheesy.
Yeah.
Cheesy was what Batman did in Dark Knight Rises when he put that stupid fire bat thing on the bridge. That was cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah, shit, that was cheesy.
But I guess we'll just finish up the Peter Gwen stuff. I thought it was extremely strong in this movie. I think Gwen, once again, handled herself as an amazing female.
The positive in these movies are definitely Peter and Gwen. That's still so strong. You can tell like the studio never wanted to like mess with what was done so well in the first one, right? You know, but what I think is the issue are the villains. The villains are not, because for
the
one,
villains are subpar. I will definitely agree.
No,
Electro. So here's my thing with Electro. I get it. Up until he like lost his shit. Like the first half of Spider-Man running into him when he was in Times Square, that made sense. He's a dork. He's scared. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't really know what his powers are. But then like that, as soon as Spider-Man gets on the screen and he just like loses his shit, even though you got to admit that visual was awesome. Of the electricity like going through the water up the bridge, right up the stands right before Spider-Man saved all the people on it.
That was awesome, dude. That was awesome.
So it's like an Electro. I don't care what people say. I liked Electro's design. For those of you who hated it, cool. But don't forget how fucking cheesy he looked in the comics.
No, I like Electro's design here. It was great.
Yeah, no, I did. I'm saying there's people who don't. But I get what you mean. It's like after that scene, he just became, big dumb muscle. That's all it was. All character development Electro could have had was gone at that point.
Yeah, because it became Harry's lapdog after that, which is like
which was sad because he just became big dumb muscle. That's it.
That's the thing. Like what I don't like about this movie are the villains, because it's actually easily be fixed. And Dylan and I were talking about it like once on how to fix Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's like this. First, you take out Rhino, because Rhino is not important.
No, Rhino was fine. Rhino did not affect the plot of the film at all.
No, not Rhino at the beginning. Rhino at the end. And here's why. I'll explain why. You take you. It's fine putting like Rhino as at the beginning. It's like, oh, it's a little cool Easter egg. Like he can be a villain in the future, and then you don't have Goblin kill Gwen Stacy. You have Electro kill Gwen. So you have you have Electro. You have Electro be like this main villain, and then at the very end, Harry becomes the Goblin, and Gwen dies, and Spider-Man's gone because he's not unmotivated, and that's how it ends. Like it's a cliffhanger. That's how I would have done it, because you give more character development for Electro. You also give time for like Harry and his relationship with Peter to work, and you can still have Gwen's death be more emotional. I mean, that's just how I would have done it.
Yeah, I still like the way they did it though, where it was like when Rhino started attacking the city, Spider-Man realized like, while Gwen is gone, I've had my mourning period.
Yeah,
I am Spider-Man. It's time to get back to work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think it would have been better if it was like this, but I didn't mind the way they did. The problem is just really the villains. The villains are the core and center of why this movie doesn't work that much.
But you do have to admit, Harry's transformation scene is one of the most haunting things you've ever seen in a comic book.
Oh yeah, I did like it. I'm just saying
that scene is out. That whole scene where like he injects himself, from when he injects himself all the way to when he gets on the glider and takes off. That whole scene is like something right out of a horror film. It's awesome.
Yeah, I do love it.
His design as Goblin, you know what? It's still not the worst. I still liked it better than Goblin 2 from Spider-Man 3.
New Goblin, yeah, I didn't like. After like a few more like watches, I didn't like New Goblin after, which is weird because I told you that, right? Like,
you said straight up you didn't like it. You're like, I don't understand why this villain looks.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Does Harry look like this?
When I was like 6 years old, like, New Goblin was like, this guy is the coolest villain ever. And like now, like growing up, like, yeah, he's the worst one here.
he looks like shit.
His mask is not even like
a mask. It's like a weird face shield thing that comes up from the bottom. Yeah. What a wretched design that was.
That was weird.
But no, I get what you're saying. I think the problem with Harry, you know what? I still think Harry could have worked if they hadn't picked Dane DeHaan, because he just seemed, you know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of pissed off Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Just a shitty, pissed off little brat the entire movie. And it's like, I wish they'd gone the opposite, where Harry was like a good person and like being like, I don't want to die. And he like takes the like injects himself with the vaccine and like he goes insane and becomes evil because of it, instead of just being an asshole from the get-go.
I agree, yeah.
So yeah, Dane DeHaan was not a good Harry. Him and Garfield, they had zero chemistry.
Exactly. That's why I think personally, in my opinion, Harry shouldn't have become Goblin in this one. You should have used the time to build up Harry and Peter's friendship, and then he takes the fall.
You know what? And that's, you know what? Right there, that's the studio. No. We want a Sinister Six movie right after this.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you have to have the Goblin kill Gwen Stacy, but if that's the case, then make the Goblin the villain for Spider-Man 2. Don't make it Electro.
Yep, exactly. And maybe Webb didn't even, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Webb didn't want to kill her off, but they were like, nope, we got to get rid of her, because there was, I don't know who it was, but I know there was an actress they had lined up to play MJ, and I think she was in a deleted scene.
Yeah. There was an actress who was lined up to play MJ. It was Shailene Woodley. She's the girl from Fault in Our Stars and the Divergent series that never finished their story, because the last two movies were so bad that I never watched it, but I heard they were so shit that they I heard they were so shit that they just stopped.
They just gave up.
Yeah,
I mean, she's a cute girl. I think she would have been a good. She could have been a good Mary Jane.
Yeah, and I would have loved. I would have loved to see what Mark Webb would have done with her, given that he's really good with like human like drama and human element. Because remember, Mark, like, yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should watch 500 Days of Summer because that's a very realistic portrayal of romance and expectation.
And that's why they chose him. That's why they chose him for this.
Exactly why they chose him, and then and it works. It works. At least.
Absolutely. You know what? Want to know some more good casting I thought this movie had?
Who?
Felicity Jones as Felicia Hardy, Black Cat.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
that's right.
How can anybody tell me she would not have been a good Black Cat? She would have been incredible as Black Cat.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
She was hot as hell.
She was in this movie. That's right. She was in this movie. Damn, dude, I honestly completely forgot that she was in this movie.
Well, she was barely in it, but you could tell they were setting her up.
Yeah, but they were setting it up because like, Harry like name drops like, "Come on, Felicia, don't Felicia." Like, oh, and when she was saying it, it's like, oh shit, that's totally Black Cat.
Yep. Yeah, they were setting stuff up in these movies. I mean, B.J. Novak was in it as Alistair Smythe.
Right. Yeah. And that last scene is like, her. She's like he's like walking, and then there's like past like the Sinister Six gear, like you see Vulture's wings.
Well, yeah, and it's like, speaking of that, we didn't really mention him in the last movie because he wasn't in it. The man in the black hat. We still don't know who that is.
Yeah, exactly. I would have.
So it's like we didn't get closure on the Sinister Six. We didn't get closure on that. And it's the funny thing is, I hear people out there who go, "Who gives a shit?" I do. I'd like to know. I was genuinely interested. Did this movie stumble a little bit? Yes, absolutely. Do lots of franchises have stumbles here and there?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Doesn't mean you write off the whole damn thing. I mean, this movie still made $700 million. It's not like it bombed like Black Widow is about to. So it's like, this movie has does this movie have faults? Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it did.
Absolutely. I enjoy it, but I'm not going to sit and act like it's perfect. It's not as good as the first one. It could have been if Sony had not meddled in it.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? With the rumors of Spider-Man 4, with the rumors of Spider-Verse continuing on, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get a TASM 3.
Yeah,
I highly doubt it, but that's all I want at this point.
I hope we do, honestly, because I want to see that.
I'd love to see what comes next. I really do. And again, the suit in this movie is absolutely perfect. And again, they nailed Spider-Man in this movie.
Oh, I really did.
And people always, like that. The cheesy stuff in the Raimi movies, it makes it fun. Okay, what about when Electro is fighting Peter Parker, and we hear the itsy bitsy spider in the like dark electric guitar music? You can't tell me that's not cheesy, but it's still awesome.
It's awesome, dude. I love it.
So I think we brought this up in a previous episode, saddest movie deaths.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're finally talking about it. Okay, let's talk about it.
Dude,
Gwen Stacy.
Gwen's death literally.
It's hard.
Like, I knew it was coming. Like, as soon as Goblin showed up, I was like, they're gonna kill her. Like, they're going to kill her. I know it. But like, still seeing it took me by surprise. Like, I think I said it in the episode. It was like me and a group of friends, and two of us literally, as soon as we saw her, like her back snap and her head hit the ground, both of us were like, "No!" And we're like, "Dude, she's gone." They just killed off like the best part of this franchise.
Like I knew she was gonna go when it slowed mo down, and then the web looked like an outstretched hand. And it just barely reaches her, and it hits her, but it's too late because like with the full force of the whiplash, smacks her on the pavement, and she's gone. I was like,
And I mean, that's another thing. People just count this whole movie and they never remember that scene. And they're always like, it was supposed to be Norman that did it. And I'm like, oh my God, you fucking purists.
It's like that.
Well, okay, if we're going to go by that, then I guess the Raimi movies suck too because he dated Gwen Stacy after MJ in those movies. So I guess those just suck because of that reason then.
It still hits hard, honestly. Like seeing
it does. I genuinely I don't like watching that scene because it's just Garfield did such an incredible job, I thought, portraying just brokenness upon her death.
Yeah, but when he's just yelling and screaming, and it's like, yeah, I get it, dude. I get it. And he's like,
I mean, that's how anybody would react to the love of their life dying. Especially right after they just had gotten back together. They decided they're going to go to Europe together. He's going to stop being Spider-Man. And then, bam, it cost her life. And you know what? The one thing, she still died a hero, though, because she didn't have to be there. She was not a damsel in distress who was brought to that location as a hostage just to die.
Yeah.
She was there being a hero who got caught up between a battle of two individuals, two superhumans who are far stronger than her. And she died because she got caught between them.
It sucks. It really did. I knew she was going to die like the minute like that web broke. I was like, oh, that's it. It's over.
Yep. And it's hard to watch, but you know what? Gwen died in the comics. And so you know what? And that's just how it went. And I'm glad we got to see it. It was still a goblin that killed her. It wasn't Norman. Fine. I'm not going to get bent up over schematics on that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, again, we've talked about it before. I'll say it again. Adaptations. Every comic book movie changes something. Every single one.
Yeah.
Everything in MCU, everything in DC, everything Fox did, everything Sony did. Everything is different than the comics. Get used to it.
Yep.
So, yeah. Do you have anything else for TASM 2?
That's it. I'm done.
Okay. I'm done too. I liked TASM 2. It's not, I'm not saying it's the best one, but I'm also not saying it's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's it, I guess. So next week we will be talking two films we already discussed in length, but since it is a Spider-Man franchise, we will do our best.
Go more in depth because last time we barely said anything.
Yeah, we will do our best to revisit them and talk about them. So
what are we talking about?
So yeah, exactly. Next week we'll be doing the MCU movies, Spider-Man: Homecoming and Far From Home. If you wanna know our initial thoughts, they're Spider-Man: Homecoming since Phase 3 Part 1 and Spider-Man: Far From Home is the last of Phase 3 Part 2. So you can check those videos out in the Eternal Midnight channel. And then after that, we will be doing Spider-Verse, which we discussed for Christmas, but we'll just be doing it more in depth again. And Venom.
And Venom 2.
And Venom 2. So stay tuned.
Because that trailer for Carnage was sick.
It was so awesome. I can't wait for that. So yeah, stay tuned and we'll see you soon, guys. I'm Santino, signing off.
Adios.